My name is Kiati. I'm the head of the firm of Joshi Advocates. Thank you very much for joining me in this video on private life. Before we begin, just a quick reminder in reference to the Brexit videos. I'm going to put a Brexit video up next week, which is going to be the second part. I'm still in the middle of figuring out the policy and making sure that I've looked at everything before I voice it to you. So by next week it should be with you. But today we'll be discussing people who are not legally in the UK and have no partner and have no children, so they're alone. And they've lived in the UK for a very long time. We have done videos on how people can get their residence in the UK because they have a partner who's British or settled, and or because they have children in the UK who are British or 7 years of age. These videos are linked below. So let's begin with how a person can get leave to remain in the UK if they've lived in the UK for a long time and they have no partner and no children. There are 4 ways we're going to discuss, and each way is going to be limited by an age. So what does that mean? Let's pursue that in option number 1. Option 1 is where a person is under the age of 18 and was not born in the UK and has lived in the UK for 7 years, and it would be unreasonable to expect this person to leave the UK. So you would understand that this mimics the law on the 7-year child route. So what this means is a person who's aged under 18 and has lived in the UK for 7 years, and it would be unreasonable to expect this person to leave the UK, then that person would be given limited leave to remain, which is 2.5 years. So that's one. I'm going to come up to the documents that we need at the very end to address all 4 options. So that's the first option. The second option is a person is aged between 18 and 25 at the time they make the application, and they have lived in the UK for at least half of their life. So say that at the time of making the application the person is aged 18. That means they would have had to enter the UK at the age of 9. Now note that interestingly this section, if the person were to meet this requirement, all they have to prove is that they are between the ages of 18 and 25 when they make the application to the Home Office, and documents to support that they have lived in the UK for half of their life. That's it. There is no requirement that, oh, it's unreasonable to expect you to leave the UK. There's no other requirement. That's it. Between ages 18 and 25 and lived in the UK half of the life. Yeah, so that's the second group of people. Now, the third group of people is people who have lived in the UK for 20 years continuously. Illegally, of course, but 20 years. Previously, most of you would know, the law used to be 14 years, but now it's 20 years. So if you lived in the UK for 20 years continuously, great. That's it. All you have to show is lived in the UK for 20 years unlawfully. Again, no other requirement to say, oh, it's going to be hard for you to go and live back in your country, or is it unreasonable to expect you to leave the UK? No other requirements. Simply show with documents, including your passport and a document for each year addressed to you, the applicant, confirming that you've lived in the UK. So say that you've lived in the UK now for 20 years, which would mean that you came in the UK not 2008 but 1998. So from 1998 until 2018, that's a 20-year block. For each year from 98, there should be something addressed to you in your name which confirms that you were living in the UK. If you can't get these documents because you weren't allowed to work, or you don't have a bank account because you weren't allowed to have a bank account, of course, understandable. Get a GP medical history if you're allowed to get a GP medical history. If you've been signing with the Home Office, make sure you know which year you began signing, so you can write a statement to the Home Office saying, look, you know I was in the UK because I've been signing with you from X year. And finally, if you can't get any of these documents, get letters from friends, or if you have any family members like cousins or uncles, get letters from these people with a copy of their ID to confirm when they met you, where they met you, how they know you, how often they meet you, and what do they think you would suffer from if you were required to leave the UK. But for someone who has lived in the UK for 20 years, if you can simply prove that for each year, for the 20-year block, you have been in the UK, you have not left, then Home Office will give you the residence. Okay, but it's up to you again to prove that you're in the UK. One client said to me, oh, I don't have a passport, so how could I leave? Interesting. And sadly, my response was, well, if you have come in the UK without a passport, then it's reasonable to say that you could have left the UK and come back in. So simply saying that, look, I don't have a passport, therefore I couldn't have left the UK isn't sufficient, I'm afraid. If you're making the application, it's for you to prove that you've been in the UK continuously for 20 years. So that's that. And finally, the fourth group of people who are over the age of 18 but have lived in the UK for less than 20 years. And it would be significantly difficult for you to integrate in society, in the country where the Home Office is saying you need to go. So example, you come from an X country because you have that X nationality and nationality's passport. And you show the Home Office, I've been in the UK for 10, 12, 16 years, whatever, as long as it's less than 20 years. You show the Home Office. And you will have to show the Home Office that you cannot live in that X country if the Home Office made you go there. And you have to show that with evidence. So the evidence could be your ties to the UK. Show the Home Office with documentary evidence what your ties are to the UK. Is it friends? Is it medical? Is it no family there because of a dispute or because of who knows what? But whatever it is, put it in a documentary evidence. If you can't find any documentary evidence, write a letter to support the application which the Home Office caseworker will read. Okay, so when you are thinking that, oh, let me go and put the application in because I've lived in the UK for less than 20 years and I think it would be difficult for me to go and live in the country of my nationality, please make sure that you have to prove the last point I've just made about going back and living in the country and it's going to be made difficult for you to the Home Office. You're going to have to prove that with documentary evidence. Simply saying that I've lived away from the country for the last 16 years isn't going to be enough. You will have to prove more. And if the application is refused, you will have to be, Home Office will put you on something called reporting or signing as it's known colloquially. And that is signing every month with the Home Office, weekly or monthly. And that means that the Home Office has the power to detain you should they deem fit when you are signing. So the pressure is on you. So before you make the application and compromise your liberty, make sure that you meet the requirements. Okay, great. So these are the four things. In respect of documents, of course you need a valid ID, which is your passport, hasn't expired, to support the application, and the documentary evidence I've listed throughout this video to support your length of residence and why is it difficult for you to go back and live in the country of your nationality, and why would it be unreasonable for you to leave the UK. Right, so I think these are all the aspects covered. If I've missed something, I will cover it again, but I think these are the four groups that I want you to focus on when thinking of what application to put in and whether you meet the requirements before you compromise your liberty. All right, as usual, subscribe and contact me, details below if I can assist you further. Next week, the Brexit video part 2 is going to come out, so I hope you guys watch that. Thank you so much. See you very soon. Take care. Bye.